Hey, you guys, this is your girl, Coach Ebony Nicole, the writing coach and publishing engineer, here with another episode of the Bold Writers Live podcast, where authors' written words become spoken. And I am over the moon excited. Can you tell that I have Dr. Brock, who I will call Brock respectfully, here on the show to talk about his new book, The Neighborhood Scholar. Listen, I've been trying to get my hands on this book, y'all, but I can't. What I'm telling you, when I do, don't talk to me until I'm done reading it. Okay, I'm gonna dedicate a day, and I've done that before, so I don't mind doing it again. Dedicate a day to diving into what this man has to share. So before we get into it, Brock, who are you? Introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's a good question. I always consider myself a child of Rochester, clearly,
Mm-hmm.
but born and raised in Rochester, Hanover housing, raised in William Warfield projects, attended public schooling, went on to do things academically and professionally that I didn't necessarily see or didn't envision when I was younger. So just happy about that. I'm a person that's not just from the neighborhood, but of the neighborhood. So,
Mm.
I'm not a person who was shy of not making my own mistakes and, stepping on a few landmines that kind of cultivated my leadership trajectory and my lived experience. So I don't, take it for granted. As of right now, I serve as a national expert in systems change and economic mobility, but I also cross over into racial equity and also do a work on the policy front too.
Oh wow.
So when I left Rochester, I was able to achieve a number of different things at the national scale, and now I'm trying to bridge what appeared to be a divide for me when I was trying to
Mm.
do the local work and trying to tie to the national work, but it's not a juxtaposition. They really work hand in glove, but it's a matter of being that connective tissue. So that's a little bit about who I am, without getting into too much of a spill. So hopefully
Yeah.
that answers your question.
It does. We want to know who you are as an author and beyond. And so you're more than just someone who put together a book. No, I know from following you on social media and having met you in a lot of social circles that there's a lot to you. And I think that
Yeah.
this book is going to be a snippet of that. So, one of my questions that I have is the title is Neighborhood Scholar. What
hmm
does that phrase mean to you? And why was it important to have hood stand out? So, people, when they
Yeah.
see the cover, they'll see the hood is really fairly large. So what's behind that?
That's a really good question, Ebony. So I'll take you back to the context of how the movement started around the time of Trayvon Martin. So if you
Mm,
recall, because of his attire, he had on a hoodie.
yeah.
It was largely the reason why he was targeted as someone that had criminal intent and was later slaughtered, by the hands of an ignorant person.
Yeah.
That was something that appealed to me for a host of different reasons, primarily because of my tire was always used as a catalyst for people to judge me from the outside looking in. And because of my attire, I used it as a weapon to support the work that I was doing, but people try to use it as a crutch or try to cripple me as a result of it. So it was me not playing on words, but when I was younger, I was always known as what my friends would say, the intelligent thug because I
Mm,
was smart, but I was always willing to put in work. And I'll just let
yeah.
that be what it is for the audience.
Yeah.
So, because I had to live in these two different worlds, I wasn't at war within myself, but for whatever reason, people thought I had to be one or the other. Either I'm
Mm,
with it or I'm just smart. I always was smart. I always considered myself to be a scholar or a nerd, but I also was willing, again, I wasn't just from the neighborhood, I was of it. So all the
yeah.
things that go along with that, I was a trendsetter. So I wasn't the person that was following. I was the person that was directing and leading and making things happen. I was an enforcer. I was muscle when I was younger. So it was
Wow.
always these two worlds I had to live in. So when that happened, I said, you know what? I'm going to create this moniker. It's going to be a movement because most of the smart people that I knew growing up didn't have letters or degrees.
Yeah.
They actually had hood scholarship or hood literacy. These are individuals
Yeah.
that will run a Fortune 500 company and will be considered illiterate, or will be individuals who didn't necessarily even graduate middle. This is unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but these
Yeah.
are individuals
Yeah.
who probably don't have a high school education, probably didn't even enter the ninth grade, and if they did, they were lucky to do so. But they were multimillionaires, and you can't have that level of intellect and intelligence without being somewhat smart. But they never looked at it
Absolutely.
from the same scales that I was trying to I want to say curate for these type of leaders. So that's the reason why I came up with the construct of neighborhood scholar, because I was trying to make scholarship the new cool. So as opposed to people
Ooh,
putting
okay.
scholarship in a box that just say it's solely an academic exercise, no, scholarship is much more than that. It does comprise of economic mobility. It does comprise of that HUD literacy that individuals may not have the language for, but they recognize that, 1 second too slow, this could go left. I can lose my life. So that calibration, all those skills that you develop in toxic environments is part of the
Mm,
scholarship language that I'm building out, or the lexicon that I'm making part of what I'm calling neighborhood scholar.
listen, for anyone that is listening, you got to lean into this. You can be both smart and hood. You can go from the block to the boardroom if you
Hmm.
so see and you work hard enough to do it. You can take what you've learned then and apply it there.
That's right.
And I absolutely love that because you don't have to sit in where you grew up from. You can take that and, like, you know what? I see what the HUD can do, and I see what they can do over here in corporate. I'm about to merge the two. I don't care
That's
what
right.
nobody else says. I'm about to merge them.
That's
So,
right.
as you were growing up, was
Mhm.
there a specific moment in your life, now that you look back, that you realize your neighborhood had taught you something the black classroom just couldn't teach you?
Yeah, so it was when I started leading systems change
Mm,
efforts that I recognized that this is not anything you will learn from a textbook, because I had to serve as like a cat herder. Like, I was a leader of different influentials or leaders, having to get folks to row in the same direction. These are individuals who have huge egos. And there were a lot of different things working at play. You had the political climate, you had other selfish ambitions, you may have to
mm,
have genuine community ambitions. And I had to navigate this. So I had to do it from a scientific perspective, but I also had to do it as a
mm,
soft art. So it wasn't until those spaces when I recognized that I had to lean on something I didn't even have language for, because prior to having the corporate or the institutional experiences, I was taught that you had to
mm,
fragment yourself. So you had to shrink in order to be in the rooms where some of these institutional leaders would respect your intellectual prowess, or
yep.
they will feel you have the right to be at the table, when in reality you've always belonged there, but it was only a fractured version of you because you had to continuously reduce yourself to be sanitized version of who you were versus just being naturally who
Yeah.
you were gifted to be. So it wasn't until I had to lead with integration and wholeness that I went back to who I was prior to the training.
Mm,
And again, I'm not taking away from my educational training. I think that was the best thing to happen for me
yeah.
specifically. But there was a reduction of self that happened, or a regression that took place when I was going through the academic process and trying to become a leader, that a
Mm,
lot of folk didn't necessarily see me becoming. I think there were individuals who wanted me to be a version of what they wanted me to be, a second class version of them versus the first class version of me. So I'll just keep it like just generic,
ooh,
because my goal was never to be a white woman, to be a white man, to be
yeah.
no one but a black man who grew up in the projects and who was smart and who was capable, who was enough. I didn't have to be anybody but myself, but
Yeah.
because of the institutional players in the design architecture that supports those leaders in those systems, there's an archetype that we feel we have to live into or lean into in order for us to thrive in those settings. And there was a part of me that was starting to feel like I had to play the game. But you get to a point, well, I got to a point when my mom died, when I said I'm not
Yeah.
willing to play this game
Yeah.
anymore. So that's when I started to ask myself a different host and set of questions, and it led me down a different journey. And that's when I knew that it was the hood practices, it was
Yeah.
the education I developed in William Warfield that gave me a competitive advantage
Yeah.
paired with my intellectual prowess as well as my educational background. So it wasn't a juxtaposition, it was the harmony of both that
Yeah.
catapulted me on a national scale. So that's when I knew was when I just stopped performing.
When you said there were times you had people wanted you or you had to kind of
Mhm.
reduce yourself,
Mhm.
people often want others to do that for their
Mhm.
comfortability,
That's right.
especially when it comes to white America.
That's
They
right.
they would think that black people coming in confident, they construed it as arrogance. No,
Yep.
I'm confident. I'm here for a reason, for a cause to make waves in a positive manner and get things done. But some see that as a threat.
Yeah.
And in order for you to be in this room, to sit at this table, you can't come in sitting at the side of the table, and but your aura, your presence make me
Mhm.
feel like you need to be at the head of the table. So now you're a threat and I'm gonna come for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, black and brown people will continue to reduce themselves when they know I need to be at the head of this table. I can run this thing,
Hmm.
but for the comfortability of others, I got to dim my light. I got to dim how smart I am. I got to
Yep.
dim my know-how. So I would say for whoever find themselves in a position, especially because your book is, focused on leadership, do
Hmm.
not reduce yourself to make
That's
others
right.
feel comfortable.
That's
You
right.
keep expanding.
That's
Do
right.
not reduce. Do not
That's
reduce.
absolutely it, Ebony. That's
Do not.
100% it.
Do not.
Lead from an integrated whole perspective.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
lead with
In
wholeness.
in your book, you write about moving from Rochester's Hanover projects to becoming a nationally recognized leader.
Hmm.
Looking back, what part of your upbringing was the greatest part of your leadership journey?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think for me, the greatest part of my lived experience that supported my national journey was having a foundation rooted in love
Mm.
and having everything and having nothing at the same time. And what
Oh
I
wow!
mean by that is that
Please, yeah.
my mother showered me in a way that no one or nothing could have been able to prepared me for. And what I mean by that is her love for me gave me the fight to do the work that I'm doing, right?
Mm.
And it was this thing I called cold anger. And I use this comparison between hot anger and cold anger. Hot anger, it dissipates with time. It's emotionally written. Oftentimes, you may make mistakes, or you may not think with sound judgment. That's why they say when you're hot-headed, you may do something that you regret.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, yeah.
But cold anger, it's methodical, it's calculated, it's laser-like in focus, and it doesn't dissipate. So it was the cold anger that I formulated growing up in Warfield, being born in the projects and watching my mom struggle, somebody I loved unconditionally and who loved me unconditionally. It gave me a purpose that was rooted in fire. So because
Mm.
of that,
That's good.
I've used that as the catalyst for everything that I've been able to do nationally. And it's one thing when you're speaking from the science. It's a completely different conversation when you speaking with the fire. So
Yeah.
that
Oh,
that's
that's good.
that's for me how it all came full circle in terms of the neighborhood and what led to where I'm at now. If that answers
So,
your question directly.
so that was your mom's love. That
Yeah,
was the catalyst behind you that kept you going. That got you to be becoming this great leader.
yeah. It was her love and
That's
watching her
love.
struggle.
Her love and her struggle.
Hmm.
What was it about her struggle that was that push for you?
Well, the book, I come in hot, and no pun intended, because I was talking about the hot anger and cold anger,
Yeah.
but I come in hot. I talk about one of the very first stories that I have. So I'll share this so folks can read the book and get more details.
Hmm.
But imagine somebody, a young person, 6, 7 years old, watching their hero check out because they're overwhelmed with things they
Mm,
have no control over. But because they feel inadequate, because they feel they can't be enough, because they've been always told there wasn't enough, and
mm,
now they're trying to support 3 miles. I'm sorry. There's a breaking point that takes place. And
mm,
sometimes before the physical structure breaks down, the mental capacity starts to break down. So imagine an 8-year-old watching something and you know the smell of blood.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Just imagine an 8-year-old
Yeah.
watching the only thing they know, just in a sea of blood and not know what to do, who to call, not even
Yeah.
freezing, like, but having to make a decision that could determine this person's life or death, right? And then,
Mm,
divine intervention. My sister came, she was 10 years older than me. She was 17 with my nephew at the time. And, she came at the right time and that resolved itself. But that was the beginning of what was many other things that have happened. And it was those structures, the
yeah.
system, the poverty, all the things that a lot of single female heads of households go through, especially who, migrated from the South
Yeah.
and didn't
Yeah.
have opportunities. It wasn't just my story. Unfortunately, it was the collective
Plethora.
story. And
Yes.
yeah, that's one. But the book gets into it, but like just know I come in hot with one of the with like that story, but it gets into some of the details.
Because I know um, your book is both a memoir and a leadership guide.
Hmm.
What is it that you hope your readers will learn about
Yeah.
leadership that
Hmm.
they won't find in the traditional leadership book? Because we know that
Absolutely.
there are hundreds of leadership books out there, but
Yep.
what are your readers going to learn? What
I'm
am I going to
giving,
learn? Because I
I'm
can't wait to
giving,
get it.
I'm giving you all the game of how to do it. So the book is part memoir, but it's not my personal story as much as it's my purpose. So don't look at it as my
Mm,
personal story, but it's my personal purpose that's mired with a leadership framework. I'm telling you, like, giving you
that's
language,
good.
letting you know what to navigate, how to navigate it, asking yourself questions. That's the reason it's titled Scholarship, Systems, and Self-Actualization. So it's about change at the change at the community leadership level, at the institutional level, and change within you, how you show up as an
Mm,
archetype of the best version of who you need to be to do the things you are placed here to do. So thinking about it as a triangulated approach to life, but using
I like
leadership
that.
and using my story to make some examples, but it's more leadership than it is personal story.
I'm glad you broke that down. So that way people have that expectation of what they're going to get into. So
Hmm.
your story is the shaping of your leadership and
Yes,
how you came about to become such a great leader.
that's
So
right.
one thing I am curious about, why did you come back to Rochester to do your tour? What
That's
was
great.
it? You could have went anywhere. You
Mhm.
Atlanta, Houston, LA, New York, Miami, Chicago, Detroit, any other, all these cities you could have chose to launch your first book. Why Rochester?
Yeah, I got three responses for you. I love Rochester. Rochester has been good to me, even though I had to learn a lot from things that were not so good in Rochester. But
Yeah,
Rochester was good to me overall, and it's still my hometown.
yeah.
August 17th, in particular, was the last day I saw my mother in Rochester. I left to take my son to visit to drop him off for college. She died two days later.
Oh,
And August 17th is my birthday. So Rochester has a very monumental, not just the historical aspects, but it's a very monumental just geography for me
mm,
because that's where I had to bury, that's when I last seen my mother.
mm,
Rochester was part of cultivating me into the leader I am today because
yeah.
the Rochester education is unlike any other education.
Mhm.
I believe if you can make it in Rochester, you can do it anywhere. You can do anything anywhere if you can make it out of the trenches of Rochester. And I want to remind people of it. My leadership journey didn't start at the national, it landed there, but it was because of Rochester that allowed me to be able to have the experiences and to develop what they call my sea legs to stand on these national
Yep,
stages. And then the other response I'll say is that there is no Leonard Brock without the Rochester story.
that's awesome.
You know,
That is
I'm going to
awesome.
do it other places, but there is no such thing. There's no Dr. Brock without the Rochester story. I'm educated in Rochester. I went to St. John Fisher, U of R. Yeah, at one point, I went to University of Buffalo, but from SUNY Brock, I'm Rochester through and through.
Rochester through and through. Ah, listen, I'm full, and everything in me is like, hurry up, August. August 17th, right? That's the release
Yes,
date. That's the
that's the release
Sunday.
date. Hmm.
And I'm like, hurry up because I need this book. Okay. And I'm very confident that because I've seen you through all these years and you have such wisdom and it cannot be denied.
Thank you.
I know that this book is going to literally change and shift lives. So, one last question, and it's just simply, well, two last questions. What was the hardest chapter to write?
Mhm. Ooh,
And why are you so grateful that you did?
there's a chapter, or there's a few chapters about the breaking that I
Mm,
had to go through in order to become the leader I am today. I've been able to finish the book because of that experience. And that's what's going to be in the memoir. Because when I talk about that, now I have little seeds in this
yeah,
manifesto. But I went through a very traumatic experience dealing with the grief of losing my mother
yeah.
and being what I thought was at the pinnacle of my success and feeling empty.
Mm,
And that was hard because I had to re-examine who I am as a person, not just who I am as a leader. And there were a few questions, and a person by the name of Avery Blackman, he goes by another name now. He posited three questions when I was younger, and I added three to the three he gave me. And this was the very first time when I saw the spiritual transition and the metamorphosis and the transformation take place within me. It's almost like
mm.
for those who come through, let's just say a religious background or Christianity, I had like a Paul experience, literally. So for those who are into
Oh my goodness.
metaphysics, it's like an alchemical experience. And like in the six questions, I'll lead the audience with this. I think it'd be good for them. Is who am I? Am I who I say who I am? Am I all that I should be? Where am I
Mm.
going? Do I know how to get there? And how will I know when I've arrived? You know, yeah.
Did you just give us homework? I think
Yeah,
you
I
just gave
think
us
well,
homework.
I think that's the homework called life.
Absolutely. And that homework
Hmm.
isn't something you can just jot down a sentence or two. No, those questions need to be well thought out
Hmm.
because that's the only way I believe you'll be able to see the success that you're hoping for.
That's
You
right.
have some things can't, oh, I'll know when I obtain this. Okay. But
Hmm.
what else? What else is there? It has to be more. It has to
Yeah.
be more.
Yep.
Doc, Brock, listen, I where can we find this book? So
Listen.
where can someone say, you know what? And one, where can we get the book? And two, someone wants to connect with you. They're like, you know what? From what I heard, I need him to come and speak to my young boys. I
Yeah.
need him to come speak to, this leadership forum I'm putting together. How can they do that?
Yeah, so the book will be available on Amazon. The ebook is actually available now for pre-order. But
Mm,
both, I mean, all three, the hard copy, paperback, and the ebook will be available via Amazon. There will be
okay.
other outlets, but also folks could actually go to my website, neighborhoodscholar.com, and purchase the book. There's a link directly to Amazon, and I will have other outlets where the book could be purchased. And as it relates to speaking engagements and how to get in contact with me, all of that they can do on the website, neighborhoodscholar.com.
Okay. Well, Rock, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
allowing me to interview you. Listen, and this conversation was so wealthy. And it's just like, if you're giving this out, it's just imagine what's in the book. So I cannot wait. I'm gonna be there. I'll put it on my calendar because
Awesome.
if it don't hit the calendar, it won't happen. But
I
it's
get
on my it's on the calendar, so I will be there just to celebrate you, to get my copy of the book, and then I can set aside a date where I'm gonna sit there and I'm going to read. And
And I
not only
think
just
you will enjoy
read,
it.
but to absorb, to
Hmm.
learn. And then what I learn to actually implement and put into action. So
Yeah.
when you all get the book, don't take the nuggets and the gems and be like, oh, that's good. No, it's good.
Hmm.
And take it and apply it.
That's
Apply
right.
it, because then otherwise you're just an information hoarder.
That's right.
You don't need to do that. So,
That's
you
right.
guys, that's all we have for today. Brock, thank you again so much for joining us on the Bold Writers Live podcast. You
Thank
guys,
you.
until next time, I'm your girl, Coach Ebony Nicole.